they are strongly of the mindset that the ends justify the means, and they frankly don't care what the U.S. law or international law, for that matter, is.
What do you think Trump's military strategy is here?
I question whether he has a serious military strategy or not. Um, the the Although with the release of the new national security strategy, there is an increased focus on the Western Hemisphere and very much a pullback from Europe. So this would be in line with the national security strategy as it's put forth in that document. Um, the However, I think this has a whole lot more to do with oil than with anything else.
By which you mean what?
Well, with the fact that Venezuela has such large oil reserves, and Trump has spoken about how Venezuela nationalized U.S. oil company interests 50 years ago, and he is looking to get those oil interests reinstated. He's very much, interestingly enough, an oil guy, and views the world largely as economic transactions, which I think is why he has shown so much preference for Russia uh, in the Ukrainian situation. He sees Russia as an economic opportunity, and he and his envoys are really real estate people, and they're more interested in uh, economic opportunity, and I don't think they. That's why they fail to understand either Putin or Zelensky. For each of whom, this is an existential crisis, not an economic opportunity.
So the economic opportunity, just to be clear, would be some kind of kickback if they manage to successfully oust Maduro with this kind of activity.
Well, I don't know if I would phrase it as kickback, but certainly as an opportunity for U.S. interests, U.S. economic interests to prevail in Venezuela, and to obtain those oil reserves for U.S. Oil companies.
But the Tren de Aragua crime organization is a notorious crime organization. They are based in Venezuela. They are responsible for some narcotics coming into the USA. Is there also a legitimate argument for picking off these kinds of targets to attack them?
Well, there's a legitimate argument for law enforcement operations to do that. There's certainly a legitimate argument that the Coast Guard should be utilized in its role as a protector of U.S. Border pathways over water, and but the use of military force and this buildup of military forces in the Caribbean is far beyond anything necessary for law enforcement or to deal with Tren de Aragua. That you don't defeat criminal narcotics gangs with military force. You do it with good intelligence and good criminal law enforcement.
But in that sense, is it that different to what President Obama was doing with strikes on terrorists in Pakistan and in Yemen and in Somalia?
Well, I think that it is because the terrorists' avowed interest was to destroy the United States. The U.S. was the great Satan, and whereas with Tren de Aragua or any other narcotics organization, you don't want to destroy the United States. You want to cultivate it as a market. So it's a far different situation.
Do you think if there was evidence, though, that strikes like this did decrease the flow of illegal narcotics into the US, that end would justify these means? Could that end ever justify these means?
Um, the problem with using an ends versus means argument is that it ignores international law as well as U.S. law. In the United States, we do not have a death penalty for drug dealers. irrespective of how much narcotics they may be moving.
Yeah.
Before you could legally kill drug dealers or drug importers, there'd have to be a change in that law. So I have a very real problem with that.
Does that add to the potential illegality of this action then, in your view? Because some people say, well, this is a war crime. This hasn't been approved by Congress. This is an illegal act. But you can go even further than that if you're saying, well, if this is about combating drugs, then domestically we have no framework for this anyway.
Yes, yes, that's been my argument on this all along. Not we don't not only is it a war crime internationally, but it is illegal under U.S. law.
So do you think the people around Trump have confidence that they could argue that it's legal, or do you think they don't care?
Well, I think that they uh, I think both is true. There are some legal opinions by DOJ that say, well, this is perfectly, or by the Office of Legal Counsel that say this is perfectly okay to do, which frankly, that's just a legal opinion. You put two lawyers in a room and you can get eight different legal opinions. But I think that they uh, they are strongly of the mindset that the ends justify the means, and they frankly don't care what the U.S. law or international law, for that matter, is. Trump is very much a real estate developer who thinks the world is a zoning board that's just world legal institutions are just a zoning board that get in his way of doing what he wants to do in terms of a development.
But he's also very keen to present himself as someone who can assist in a process of peace. So, however fragile you think that image may be, do you think he'd breach it as far as to conduct some kind of actual invasion of Venezuela? Do you think that could be next? Or do you think his own ego and the way he wants to present himself wouldn't allow for that in any case?
Well, I think there's probably a bit of cognitive dissonance there. Trump keeps proclaiming that he is, in essence, the Prince of Peace, shall we say? But he does the strikes in Iran, assisting Israel in the devastation in Gaza, and the strikes in Nigeria, along with these strikes in the Caribbean and the Eastern Pacific. So, uh, he does those while at the same time saying that he's building peace. Although one has to question how durable any of those peace processes are.
So you could see this escalating further?
I I think that it could escalate. I don't think there'll be a ground invasion. I don't think Trump wants to put the boots on the ground. I think U.S. casualties might be too high, unless he views it as being a situation like what we did in Grenada or what we did in Panama decades ago, where we swoop in, depose the existing leadership, and then immediately get back out again. And with our overwhelming use of force, it cows the locals into submission. Um, Certainly the United States could devastate Venezuela in any kind of war, but the repercussions, long-term repercussions in Latin America, with our relationships with the Latin American countries, I think would be certainly very adverse to U.S. interests.